When you care about current affairs, it's on the OShow.
Welcome to the OShow, Canada's current affairs show with strong opinions. I'm your host, Laura Babcock, and as part of our Summer Fridays, we are going to be seeing a lot of these guys. It is the OShow Scandal Panel. I know it's a fan favorite because these guys always bring hot takes, and trust me, even before we get on, when we're working out my Wi-Fi issues, we still don't talk about stuff because I want to save their takes for you. So I can't wait to hear what Keith Leslie, he is of course from Queen's Park, longtime veteran journalist there in Ontario, now living in the beautiful Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
I'm
Traffic-free Nova Scotia.
I'm so jealous of Nova Scotia. I love it. We took a Mustang convertible up the coast to Peggy's Cove, spent time in Halifax and Lunenburg. What a gorgeous place. For all the Canadians out there who aren't going to travel to the US on this July 4th or any other time, because Trump has now added even more fees to visitors coming in.
Oh, yeah.
Go to Nova Scotia. I highly recommend it. Travel across Canada.
I had some friends from Hamilton visiting last week. Went to Cape Breton and they said, we went to Ireland. It's not as nice as this. Yeah. So Canadians really need to discover Canada, not just Cape Breton, but it's a beautiful, beautiful spot, and I can highly recommend it.
Well, East Coast is gorgeous, but I'll also say, Mark, as you would recall, of course, Mark Cripps, he worked with the government in Ontario in ministry, but he also was an editor of newspapers, former journalist. Mark, you might remember my family did Hoser Truck. We took a big RV across Canada during COVID and went to beautiful places like Drumheller, which we'll be talking about very soon regarding Poilievre and the Alberta Separation and all the nonsense going on out in Alberta. It is also a gorgeous place. Canadians visit Alberta, really beautiful place. Mark, Keith, welcome to the show. As I've just alluded to, of course, we can talk about Poilievre and talk about what's happening with Alberta Separation, but also here in mighty Ontario, Doug Ford has just decided that, forget your OHIP card for your free health care because there are people in line ahead of you with credit cards now paying $6,000 for, what is it, knee surgery? We've gone fully privatized healthcare options here in Ontario, which is just disgusting on levels. So Trump, I can't take it. But let me start with you, Keith. Where would you like to pick up in this? Oh, I forgot. We had Canada Day as well. Where would you like to go?
Well, happy belated Canada Day. And I'm going right where you were just at, which is the privatization of healthcare delivery in Ontario. Right. Let's face it, it's the privatization of the system as deep as they can take it, pushing it a little bit further each time. This time, the government announced, the Ontario government, $157 million for 57 new clinics, private clinics that will do not just diagnostic scans, CT scans, and MRIs, but also hip and knee replacements. Surgeries are going to be done in these new clinics. We're going to be paying them at least, if not more than double what we pay for the same services or the same surgeries performed in public hospitals. So the for-profit factor is taken in there. But of course, we're doing this at a time when our own public hospital operating theaters, operating rooms are empty virtually every evening, every night, every weekend. Private clinics could even be operating out of the public hospitals, but no, we're getting new private clinics built in your community. Well, no, how about keeping our community's emergency room open and getting these surgeries done locally when, instead of having to line up, or instead of letting someone who's willing to pay $6,000 with their credit card to jump the queue. That's the whole thing that the Canada Health Act was designed to prevent. And every time Ford and his health minister come out and say, it'll always just be your OHIP card, never your credit card. Well, bull. It's because already this started with cataracts, of course, and a lot of people agreed that we did get rid of the backlogs. We've underfunded the system so badly we'll have private clinics do it. But of course, they upsell. You need this test and you need that test. Well, who's getting their cataracts done? Seniors, almost exclusive. A giant portion of that market is seniors who are easily upsold by someone who tells you, well, you need this better lens, or you need this other test, or you need this, and that darn OHIP doesn't cover that. So they're upsold all sorts of stuff. This is what happens at private clinics. This never happens to you at the hospital. It just doesn't. Even if the clinic is associated with the hospital, that kind of crap does not happen. Not only this, we know, and there's study after study, there was another one out this week, a study of studies that shows privatization of hospital services like this immediately it provides worse outcomes, but it exacerbates the problems we already have with staffing by draining hospital staff, nurses, doctors, and other staff to the private clinics. Because, of course, they're just a lot easier to work in, quite frankly. And they're operating Monday to Friday, no nights, no weekends, all this kind of stuff. It's a much more appealing job than if you've been working in a hospital damn hard, 24/7, all your career. I mean, it's very appealing. But it's the same situation with the hospitals we already have, where they're paying private nursing agencies like several times an hour what a registered nurse on staff gets paid to fill their staffing needs. Why? To necessitate the profiteers, to get the profit out of the system. Well, my read of this is then that for that $155 million that's going to 57 new clinics, we're getting half as many hip or knee replacement surgeries that we would have had in the public system. So how is that shortening the system? It's just all so conservative. Underfund the system to the point where it's broken. The lines are long. Everyone wants, if you're waiting for a hip or knee replacement, you don't care where you're getting that damn thing. You want it done as soon as humanly possible. I understand that. I get that. That's where your politics will separate from your own living reality. I need that surgery, but I don't want to have to pay for it. Well, you don't have to pay for it. Your private, your OHIP card will cover that. Yeah. Well, what if I need this or this? It's just all designed where we shouldn't have to be questioning, do I need to take my credit card along with my OHIP card when I'm going in for my hip or knee replacement? Yes, you do. And that's not what we're supposed to be about in this country. It's the one thing that truly, I think, gives us a Canadian identity is the public health care system. And it is flawed and it has issues and there are waiting lists. And this is one way of addressing it. But the key flaw is underfunding and then paying privateers twice, three times what we pay public hospitals for the same procedures and surgeries is just shooting ourselves in the foot. And I guess it shows the government taking action to reduce waiting lists, but that's all it does.
Well, and to your point, Keith, if they wanted to reduce waiting lists, they could have funded the existing hospital system to keep those ORs open. There's 100 decisions that Ford could have made that would not be taking us to this path of privatization. But as you rightly identify, this has always been the plan. And he, of course, got elected again, mostly because of his saber rattling against his hero Trump for a month, and people fell for that. But this has always been the plan, to take from the public system and to pay off his pals in the private sector. He's taken public lands like Ontario Place, turned it into a spa, casino, science center, shut it down. I wonder which developer pal is going to get to build condos on that site. I mean, this is what Premier Ford does. He takes from the public and he gives it to the private for profit. It's sickening, it's harmful, it's grossly unfair. And on the day we're talking about this, which is, this is on July 4th, formerly known as Independence Day in the US. I don't know what they're going to call it now, but it doesn't feel very independent. They are just, put through that horrific bill that's going to take 17 million of their people off of Medicaid, right? So this is a MAGA philosophy. It doesn't surprise me coming from Ford because we know how much he idolizes Trump. But Mark, are you as animated about this as Keith is? And Keith isn't even living in Ontario anymore. You are.
Well, I mean, as someone who's been waiting for over a year now for a small hernia operation, I know how, and haven't even had a call or any kind of progress update about when I'll be in to have that done. Sure, I could go to the Shouldice clinic, private clinic, pay to stay. It's covered by OHIP, but you pay to stay, or you can upgrade what kind of surgery you're going to get. Blah, blah, blah. I refuse to do that because I believe in the public healthcare system. And I think that this is where the line kind of crosses for conservatives, is that they've never believed in a public healthcare system. So the public healthcare system can work, to Keith's point, if you believe in it, if you invest in it, if you're all in on it. But when you're just kind of like trying to do enough to keep it going while you're also trying to hand it over to people for profit, it's never going to succeed. Secondly, we didn't even talk about the massive data breach with Ontario Health and all the people's personal information, prescriptions, everything that was leaked out, and government tried to hide it for months and then finally had to come out and admit that it was a massive breach. So they're not even protecting, or the safeguards aren't even there to protect people's information. But I think, I saw yesterday a poll, Trump, I meant Ford,
Exactly.
is up plus 15 points. NDP are down 14 points. Liberals are down 1 point. So what this tells me is that the Conservatives are taking the approach that nobody's paying attention. And I know I say that broadly. Yes, people are paying attention, but the majority of people are not paying attention because they're so fucking distracted by what the shit show that's going on below us. And it's like every day, it's like, what? We're losing, and this is the damage that's being caused by the Trump regime, is that we are now not even paying attention to what's going on in our own the place that matters to us, our own fucking country, our own province, right? Because we're all every day watching this stupid fucking reality television show down there, led by an absolute bunch of maniacs. And so if I'm Ford, if I'm conservative, I'm like, Trump is our best friend because he's going to allow us to fulfill an agenda while the public is distracted. And I think that's the greatest risk that's going on. And I think, the thing with the Greenbelt, I think we may see other things resurface where we may not have the same level of passion because people are so worried. They're scared. People are legitimately scared that we're going to be invaded.
Yes.
Like, I mean,
yes.
So all the priorities have gone away from local domestic issues to sort of like the chaos that the world is in right now.
And you know what, Mark? It's interesting you say that. I posted something last night when I heard that Trump was going to add fees on visitors to the U.S. And I said, kind of sarcastically, trust me, bitch, we ain't coming. And that's like gone absolutely viral. It's in the hundreds of thousands. And I looked at the comments, and the comments are mostly supportive. I mean, there are some American MAGA trolls coming at me saying that, they're going to give Trump my name, etc. Their threats are not new, right? But I mean, like, well, what else are we going to do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what else are we going to say? On this Independence Day, when ironically, after their 250 years of celebration of throwing over the tyrancy of a king with, taxation without representation, here they are with a king and a vile one who's creating prison camps as we speak, and talking about how people can try to escape the alligators, but good luck with that. I mean, it's
who announced today that he's going to put a UFC fight on the fucking lawn of the White House next year. I mean, you want to talk about a king? Like,
he wants his face on Mount Rushmore. He wants his head on Mount Rushmore.
He wants the Nobel Peace Prize. So let me just say, on behalf of myself and maybe all the OShow guests, give it to Zelensky. Zelensky is trying for peace more than any other human on earth right now. I mean, Kyiv just got horrifically bombed last night. Trump is saying that Putin's not going to stop. At least he realizes and is saying that out loud now. But whether or not he's just going to let Putin go, is anybody's guess. So to your point, though, Mark, which is a really good point, is that we have to be concerned with the shit show below us because it's real. It's real. It's not just Trump bullshit like last time. And I'm not bragging. I put a marker down on Toronto radio in December, and I said, he is not kidding. This is for reals, right? And unfortunately, I was right. And so we have to watch it because we have to be on guard. But I've been guilty of not paying close enough attention to my city politics.
Exactly.
People keep asking me. My neighbors keep saying, Laura, what's happening with the city? Why is the mayor doing this? Why aren't you? And I'm like, because there's an existential threat going on. So all the other corruption and bullshit is, or whatever else is going on is hard to track. I do think, though, that because Ford, maybe this is some light in your assessment, because Ford is tracking so close to Trump in terms of his family's love of Trump, in terms of the grift that we're seeing, the corruption that we're seeing, the privatization taking away rights from, healthcare rights from people, because that's what I see this as. If you're going to say, if you've got a credit card, you get ahead of the line, that takes away the rights to equal access of healthcare in this province. So if he's going to start taking away rights, if Ford is going to, condemn the poor, shit on homeless people, like say terrible things, if he's going to demean and all the stuff, he's playing too close to the Trump MAGA playbook. And that might be temporarily opportunistic for him. But I think if Canadians are at high alert about what's happening south of the border, and, there's never been probably a singular point in the universe that Canadians are more united at hating than Trump, it might backfire on Smith. It might backfire on Ford. And I want to get into Smith in a minute because there's something very interesting happening in Alberta, in addition to us having Bonnie Critchley on the OShow on July 18th. But I mean, Keith, do you think that's a possibility that while the Conservatives are saying, you know what, this is our big opportunity to do all the terrible things we've ever wanted to do, create a two-tier society, that maybe people in Ontario will say anything that looks, smells, walks, or talks like Trump is going to be something we'll start paying attention to?
Well, if only. And we are seeing a little bit more attention being paid to Bill 5, which was in itself kind of like the big, beautiful bill in the United States, packed full of stuff that really a lot of people have no idea what's in there.
Right.
There's just so much shit in there that, from wiping out the Environmental Protection Act to the special economic zones that will suspend all provincial and municipal laws in specific areas and projects, to just so many things in there that have just rolled into an omnibus bill. It's kind of like, as you say, Canadians were, I think, not really obsessed with, but just our attention drawn by this big, beautiful bill, as they called it, because of so much that was in it, that they're really going to screw over the poor that badly to give the oligarchs their tax break on the week that Bezos spends $50 million on his wedding. It's just reading the room completely wrong. Or are we? Are we the ones reading the room wrong? I mean, it seems that the oligarchs, the billionaires, are absolutely in control already in the United States when they can bring in a bill that even those Republicans that were against it for very logical fiscal reasons, well, Trump talked to us and those concerns are out the window now. In other words, the king got his way without changing a single word in the bill, without changing any of it. And a lot of these Republicans and Democrats both admit they have no idea what's in. Is it 3,200 pages, 29, whatever? They have no idea all the things that are in this bill.
Yeah,
and this is a habit of the Ford government.
And just like
it's
Bill 5.
Bill 5.
Yeah,
it's
and
an
so
omnibus bill.
That's right. And Ford did it. He did an overnight rush try to passage, just like Trump tried to do. Arbitrary deadline, all the rest of it. So many Trumpian tactics. And you know what? Trump, the king got his way because you actually heard the leadership in the US say, I wouldn't want to be the one who stands in the way of the, Trump getting his way. I mean, so it's an authoritarian situation in the US. We can call it what it is. But I will just make the point that I think Canadians are watching that, and we realize even if invasion is never going to happen, and if you haven't seen my Canada Day special show with Charlie Angus, we talk very much about what could happen. Even if that's not something that's ever going to happen, and it's just going to be a generation of saber rattling nonsense until the Trump regime is gone. I think for Canadians, much like Americans, if we are in the pot of autocracy here in Ontario, we're starting to feel the heat. And when people try to get a knee replacement and they can't afford one, they're going to start to get angry. I mean, at some point, I have to believe that these terrible, wretched policies, once they hurt people in a real way, people get into the conversation who would normally have sat out the conversation. And so to your question of maybe we're reading the room wrong, we're reading the room accurately. There are more of us
I
than
believe we
there
are too. It's just you begin to doubt yourself when you see
but
so many
that's called
people supporting this nonsense.
But that's gaslighting. Okay, so
Yes, it is.
you know it, I know it, Mark knows it, our audience knows it. Gaslighting is when someone makes you question your reality as being real. And so seeing popularity for these policies may be more about people thinking, oh, we have a strong guy in charge in this time, I'm scared, and he's the guy I know, and therefore, he's fighting Trump. I mean, whenever I talk to people about Ford, they don't point to any of his policies, good or bad. They point to the fact that he's fighting Trump. Right. So, I think that there are more of us by the numbers, Keith. There are more of us who realize it. I do believe that people, when they feel the pain directly, I feel it directly only because I work with people who are in homelessness, who are in precarity of poverty on ODSB, who are waiting for surgeries. And so when I see that he's giving people a way to jump the queue, it makes me want to throw up, And so I'm passionate because I have access to people who are suffering from his policies. And I think environmentalists are passionate because they see species suffering from his policies in Bill 5, right? So as people find their connection to the issue, this is usually how people stand up and get engaged, right? It's usually a single issue that people say, wait, what the fuck is happening? Who is this guy? He's hurting my family. I'm no longer going to just give him a pass, right? Mark, I know I'm not trying to be Pollyannic here, but I am looking for, historically, that's what happens, right? Well, activism comes from that.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like, we have on this show been referring to Doug Ford as King Ford for almost 2 years now.
Yep.
Because of the things that he has done in this province. He has acted like a de facto king, and the like the way he's transferring wealth away from the government to buddies, to friends, to the earls and the dukes and all the people in the, whatever we want to call it, the way he's just roughshotting over everybody's passion about green space or about certain iconic institutions. It really doesn't matter because he is building the spoils for his own long, I reigned over and history will show that I built this. Like it literally is unlike anything I've seen in a long time. And as someone who worked with Kathleen Wynne, and again, say what you want about liberals, she was never like that. She was never like that. In fact, maybe that is the fault of these other, parties. And I don't know, like I'm gaslighting myself right now because I can't even understand how people think that this is okay. And I sometimes I think it's just, have we become so lazy and so detached from government and the point that government should work for everyone that we're just like, just let someone make decisions. I'm too busy. I got things going on. I'm fine. I'm going to be okay. And meanwhile, what have we seen over the last 4 to 5 years through the pandemic, even starting before the pandemic? More people on the streets, greater opioid crisis, more people homeless, more people falling behind in income. Like things aren't getting better and in the kingdom. Okay. Like, so maybe it's time to think about having someone else there, but we're stuck with this guy for another 4 years.
Here's a key thing.
Yeah, go ahead, Keith.
Here's another little key component of Bill 5 tucked in there, and we've talked about this briefly before, is reopening the dump in the town called Dresden, small little town just outside. Their dump has been closed for several years. And the province promised they would have, Doug Ford promised an environmental assessment, then changed that. That's not going to happen under Bill 5. And so the owners of this Dresden site, the dump site, that they want to reopen it, and they're planning to reopen it. The town went, well, no one's asked us anything. So they wrote the company, I think the company's called York One, and said, hey, you're planning to do this. We see bulldozers in there. And the company responded with, well, those are all just under the existing environmental rules. We're just cleaning up and prepping the site, blah, 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 blah. Their spokeswoman, I knew her from the Premier's office, from Premier Ford's office. This is just one small little project. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that connection. She's been gone from the Premier's office for a couple of years and has her own consulting and PR firm. That happens. It happens very regularly. But the connections in these kind of things are what the people in Dresden are just going, what? For God's sakes, that's going to overwhelm us. Now, Ontario has a trash problem. And if, we've discussed it, if Trump realizes we're sending them 75 truckloads a day, trailer loads of garbage a day from Ontario, we could have a problem in a hurry. But something has to be done. But the people of Dresden are really, really feeling screwed over here, and they just see a future where their voices are just being ignored, and this thing's going to be like quadrupled and way bigger than it ever was. And so it's a scary prospect for them, but again, just tucked into this bill. So how do they protest it when others than Bill 5 are the First Nations groups that are fighting their being screwed over by Bill 5, the special, and all of there's so many aspects to it that the omnibus bill essentially gives them cover. And I think this is what's happening with Trump's big, beautiful bill. There's so much in there that people are taking it. Oh, I heard this is good for us. Or I heard that's good for us, or good for Alaska. We got a carve out, or whatever, all this kind of stuff. So the real impacts, we're going to have to wait till they actually are felt by people.
You know what?
And unfortunately, it's going to be the poor that feel it the most.
First, they came from the poor, and we did nothing because we aren't. Yeah. Then they came for the seniors in LTC, and we did nothing because we're not seniors in LTC. We're watching that in the U.S. right now. First, they came for the immigrants, right? Now they're talking about U.S. citizens. If they're bad, then U.S. citizens too could get sent to Sudan or El Salvador.
To any country. The Supreme Court said they can send them to any country, including countries they've never been to. So you're going to South Sudan. Have fun there.
So
what the hell?
So if we don't, the lesson here, and Matthew Dowd was on my show, the OShow here back in September of last year, I think, and he gave a warning to Canadians: if you don't think it can happen to you, it happened here. And so I think we're watching that. I hope we're all watching that. And it's not enough just to say we're not going to visit and we're going to boycott US products. It's also about understanding that if we let these rights be taken in Canada, we're going to end up there faster than we can possibly imagine. So we have to fight for the poor. We have to fight for seniors, and we have to fight for, I don't need a cataract or a knee surgery, but I sure as hell am doing this show today about that, because you know what? If we don't fight for each other, then those who would take advantages of us win. And your point, Mark, about the kingdom's not doing any better, it's not doing any better for the people outside the walls, but the
Right.
people in the palace are having a jolly good time.
100%. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you know what? As we move to a feudal system and we have our lords and we can't get access to the castle, it really sucks. And so in the history of humanity, and we're seeing this with the No Kings protest in the US, people will take so much before they revolt, before they decide we've got the numbers. And the only thing that autocrats ever fear or royal families ever fear is the populace.
Revolution.
Right?
Revolution.
Revolution. That's right. And the ones that work are the peaceful ones, actually, because more people can join a peaceful revolution movement as long as there's 3.5% of the population in a critical peaceful mass that continues to grow because more people see it's peaceful and see it's necessary.
But
Then that's how
they send in the agitators. There's no such thing anymore as a peaceful, because they'll send in the agitators to justify their ICE agents with their masks and the police aid coming in and beating everybody. And you
That's why
can't
the
do that
No
anymore.
Kings is working so hard to keep it peaceful. That's why the No Kings
Exactly.
is
It's
so
really hard
successful.
to keep it
Yeah.
peaceful because they do send in agitators. The other side sends in agitators, and I'm sure there's some on the other.
You know, I feel like something's going to happen. I keep thinking of Ohio, and what happened in Ohio, and I feel like we are going to see something like that happen down the States, which is going to completely change the course of that country. I mean, it's sad that you're thinking innocent people protesting could be killed by their own police and military before the rest of the Americans wake up and go, okay, that's the line. That's the line I can't cross now, right? Like, is that the line that they need to see? You know, because it scares me that I don't see enough. Yes, the No Kings protest, wonderful, like turnout, and I'm sure the next one will be even bigger. But like, what is going on with everyday Americans in ridings like, you know, Mike Johnson's riding, where majority of people are on Medicaid and need food stamps? Like, how are they, like, how is he winning elections, or how is he going to win another election there when he's hurting his own people? Like when are people going to stand up?
Mark, there's not going to be another election. As long as
That's scary, Laura. That's scary.
What regime ever gives away power to a free and fair election? They hold the pretend election like Putin does every time he gets reelected by 80%.
Do we really think we're at that point now where we're not?
Why would Trump and his kleptocrat billionaires give up a thing? You know,
we're already at the point of show me your papers.
We already are at the point of show me your papers. There are people who aren't leaving their house in states because they're terrified by being brown and being sent to Alligator, Alcatraz, or El Salvador. Not leaving their houses. There was an Iranian
voting booths.
There was an Iranian woman in Louisiana, in New Orleans, who was watering her garden, lived there for 50 years. She came over in the 1970s as a student, and they went into her garden and they took her away from her family. So, I mean, it's the worst thing to me about that bill, other than taking 17 million people off of Medicaid, is the fact that they put in enough money for ICE that it's a bigger allotment than the entire Israeli defense budget. It's $40 billion, right? So it's going to be everywhere. It is a Gestapo. One of our former OShow guests, brilliant, Adam Coffey, called it, alligator Auschwitz, and it did better as a hashtag than the White House's hashtag did, because we have to call this stuff for what it is. So yes, Mark, I think that unless they get their shit together fast, and Schumer talking about, I made an amendment to change the name of the bill. I'm like, I'm sure 17 million people who are going to die, or whatever it's going to be, give a shit about the name of the bill. Like, so to your point, and I want to take this back because I want to talk about Alberta, because this is, of course, all tied in.
Yeah.
But to your point about, do we need to be tougher, meaner as people who believe in a small L liberal democracy? I think we have to be more strategic. I think we need our best and our brightest. I think we need to fight the air war every second of every goddamn day before it becomes a worse war. I don't think any of us can sit on our couches. I think we all have to listen to what E. Jean Carroll said on the Tim Miller podcast, The Bulwark, the other day. It was a brilliant interview. And she said, Tim, people need to get the fuck outside of their houses. They need to meet up with their neighbors and decide what they can do. Get your asses off the couch, America. Get the fuck out of your house, as E. Jean Carroll said, because she took on Trump. She knows what it takes. She won against him in court twice. You know, she got her justice after 60 years. She's saying, get up and get out there. And so we need to do that in Ontario. And let's talk about Alberta, because an amazing thing happened. So to your point, my point about being more strategic, more forceful, more proactive, are you guys following what this Lukasik guy did in Alberta? I just saw it this morning. A former member of the legislature, I forget his exact title, so Danielle Smith's got this whole July 4th independence. We're going to have, you know, this process to start for independent, the plebiscite in Alberta, whatever. He filed one to keep Alberta in Canada before the separatists got theirs filed. So now the premier's in a position of, she's talking about, well, we'll have two processes, and this guy's like, no, we're not going to. We have the one, and it's mine got in first. So he's putting Danielle Smith in a corner, saying, you know what, this petition is going to get most signatures first. You know, in other words, are you going to sign it? And she's not committing to signing it. So he's forcing her to declare what side she's really on. Because as he said, this Alberta independent inside of United Canada is a word salad of like saying, and this guy's quote Lukasik, he said, it's like saying, I'm single within my marriage, right? He's like, which is great. And he also lived in authoritarian Poland. And so he is doing this because he knows what it is to be in an authoritarian state. His words, right? He said that on the CTV show out there in Alberta. He's from authoritarian Poland. He knows what it's like to not have real choice. So he's pushing the envelope. So that kind of stuff, I don't think we have to get mean, but I do think that we have to, you know, in my case, I'm pretty snarky and fast, so that's my métier, my forte. But I mean, we have to be strategic. So legislators, you have to get ahead of this stuff, right? Protesters, you have to get ahead of this stuff. You can't wait until Chuck Schumer at midnight trying to change the name of the bill that's been called that for 3 months. You have to get ahead of all of it. So this guy is getting ahead of it with a counter plebiscite, a counter referendum, and you know, and he's very clever. And I hope that puts her in a box. But there we've got Poilievre in the Battle River-Crowfoot riding, right? And it's very much one of the separatist ridings. You got Bonnie Critchley, who's going to be on the program. She is not for Alberta separation. You know, her tagline is really clever. She says, our home, our riding. And she, of course, is on a horse. That's very clever positioning. But I mean, so what's Poilievre going to say, guys? If the media does its job and starts to ask him every day, are you for Alberta separation? There is a pro-Canada, referendum question. Are you going to be one of the signatures on that? I mean, I think this U.S. stuff comes right down to whether or not Pierre Poilievre can lose his seat, which I know thousands of OShow viewers are really hoping can happen, like Bruce Fanjoy. So let me go to you, Keith or Mark. Please weigh in on Alberta any way you want to take it. We got a lot of Alberta viewers.
Well, I got to
Poilievre dance. Well, I was just going to say, watch Poilievre dance. That'll be my.
Do I have to like two-step like a cowboy dance? Really?
He's going to try, but I think he's presented with and Smith in particular is presented with a real serious problem. There's talk of yet another conservative party being formed in Alberta.
Exactly.
And I think
already
that's
happening.
The key. It's happening. It's underway. Yeah. So Premier Nenshi may not be that strange a phrase in a short order of time. I think this is what Danielle Smith is really needing to concentrate on right now, is how she's going to hold on to a conservative government. Whatever you want to call it. Can she work with these other people? She's in some serious trouble. So I think she's going to have to declare herself one way or the other. And I don't think Alberta independence is going to help her hold on to her seat as Premier of Alberta. I just don't. Sorry, Mark, I know you were running.
Well, I'm glad you raised that, because the irony is that these are two members of Smith's one was a minister who she turfed because they had questions about the whole healthcare scandal that's going on there. So every year, someone in the UCP is supposed to reclaim the name Progressive Conservative, buy whatever, pay the fee to own that name. They forgot. And so these guys snatched it up, and now they have started the Progressive Conservative Party of Alberta back. They're resurrecting the old, the old school progressive
I'll
conservative
take
party.
it. I'll take it over the UCP and
What a
the
bad week.
Reform Party.
What a shitty week for Danielle Smith. I mean, honestly, like
Well, that's two filings. The Separatists forgot to file.
Right. and then Parachute, he's Parachute up there in Battle River-Crowfoot. He's going to be it's going to be interesting to see. I keep getting emails from them begging for money for his by-election. I'm like, are you serious? Like, honestly,
But he has a Rolls-Royce convertible. He was riding on Canada Day. Did you guys see that?
Unbelievable. And then it was like the last one was like they were desperate to make their quarter, and we have to make our quarter. Like something's going on.
Maybe he can donate the rent he's not paying at Stornoway as the Stornoway squatter and give it to the riding association in Battle River-Crowfoot, or get the guy who lent him his Rolls Royce for that most embarrassing photo I've ever seen. Maybe they can chip in. I mean, so we're laughing because it's remarkably stupid. I mean, Danielle Smith, the UCP, the separatist movement, Poilievre's campaign so far, remarkably, stunningly stupid. And that's not just coming from a center of the country or East Coast or whatever the hell, wherever. I've lived in Winnipeg, I don't know, whatever I am. It's not just coming from me. It's coming from, I think, Albertans who certainly watch this program. They're sick of the stupidity. They're sick of the corruption. They're sick of the Smith government. And I think there might be a real amount of support, not just behind signing this referendum to stay in Canada, but also for Bonnie Critchley. I said whoever comes out of the gate and looks like the best challenger for Poilievre, regardless of if she's independent or liberal or NDP, I couldn't care. I would have on the show like I did with whoever ran against him in Carleton. And Bruce Fanjoy won. Now, I don't know if Bonnie, I don't know her at all. I know she's a veteran. I've read her website. It seems very down to earth, very no BS, pro-human rights, anti-separation, and she'll take the rest kind of from her constituents and be a true representative. I mean, so I think that Canadians will support the Critchley campaign, just like they did Bruce Fanjoy's campaign.
Who the hell thought the Rolls Royce was a good idea? I mean, good God, after Carney, when Carney launched his campaign and someone, we don't know who, sent a Rolls Royce in as if he had taken the Rolls Royce there, and it backfired completely in that, he just wasn't near Rolls Royce because no politician would launch his campaign with a Rolls Royce in Edmonton. But apparently Pierre Poilievre will ride in one on Canada Day. Again,
in a small Alberta town.
It just seems so...
Ride a nice horse.
It just, again, who on his staff said, oh, there's a good idea. Put on a Stetson, it'll all be good.
Let me answer this, because you've asked maybe a rhetorical or maybe you want an answer. I have a policy here on the program where I don't talk about people who aren't in elected office.
Yeah.
I have a thought of who might have wanted to ride on the Rolls Royce. But listen, I don't care. I mean, they're setting themselves up very Trump and Melania. I don't know if you saw the photo. Like all of that stuff might play well to the Trump-loving people in that Battle River-Crowfoot, or they might say, you know what, he seems like a carpetbagger to me. They think that, right? He's
already said that, like I read the other day that they're already saying this is only a one and done thing, that the guy who resigned is fully intends to run in the next election to regain his seat. I mean, if I'm thinking to myself, like, this guy just lost in Ottawa to a up and comer, never ran before guy, and now he wants to come and sit in our riding and not even really represent us. He just wants the House and the seat in the House of Commons.
And he also wants the House Stornoway. Clearly, he won't leave Stornoway.
Right. He doesn't care about this riding. Like, I'm thinking, if you're truly Albertan, and, Albertans are so proud of the communities they live in. They are enormously proud of the communities they live in, the areas they come from. I'd be like questioning anybody who's like, yeah, well, I'd rather vote for somebody who's from the community, who lives in the community, who's invested in the community, who's worked in the community, who's born and raised in the community, versus some guy who's just asked, he's like begging you. Like, honestly, and that's why I go back to these emails. It's so gross. They're begging for money. Like, how does he need fucking money to run in a by-election. Are you kidding me?
Is there a
They don't
billboard
have-
to buy? I don't know. I don't know if they have a billboard.
Honestly, like, did they drain the bank account in the last election and they have nothing left? And everybody, so this tells me, I'm thinking, Pierre losing, Conservatives are like, I'm not giving you any more money. Yeah, I'm not giving you any more money.
He's down 20 points to Carney. A new poll, 20 points, 30 points, 30 points, right?
Yeah.
So to me, if I'm a conservative money bagger guy or girl, I'm like, got beat by Fanjoy, and not by a little. It wasn't even
right.
Down 30 points, falling.
The image I saw of him from the campaign trail yesterday or the day before was, it appeared to be a grass golf course, but the crowd, such as it was, a few dozen people, were like 60 feet away from him, and he's got a microphone. There's this big, huge putt in between that I could never sing.
Come on, Keith! It was the biggest rally ever in the history of Alberta. I'm doing.
As a by-election campaign, you get right in there to the people. You literally elbows in. I mean, you're in talking with the people. It is just at this great distance. The money must be going for the AV system so they can actually hear them. But of course, I guess there's no reporters allowed to ask questions back. They might be shouting them in the distance or whatever. But just the image, it just struck me.
Distance, did you see the photo of him and Danielle Smith hugging? Have you guys seen that?
No, I haven't seen that one.
Imagine a hug for our audio listeners. Imagine like a tent structure you would draw, right? Where like the top of the tent meets and the rest is as far as possible. They're like hugging with as much physical distance between their bodies. I mean, the love that is flowing is not flowing. So, I mean, will Danielle Smith support him if he takes a pro-separation stance? Maybe. But I mean, what does he want to do then? Say I'm pro-separation to get the election in that riding, and then say when Danielle Smith wants to leave the country, oh no, you have to stay in Canada? Or, as I've said from the beginning, is Poilievre really MAGA? And we saw who he hung out with during the convoy, Canada's version of January 6th. We know maybe where his allegiances are. Maybe he wants to be the 51st state. That's why I sure as hell didn't vote for him, just the fear of that, right? So, I mean, maybe the people in that riding are going to say, yeah, we want to separate so badly. We want this guy in power so he can take our country away, which is why I think Canadians are so invested in stopping Poilievre.
But why would you want to make him prime minister? Like, that's the thing. He's never going to be prime minister in that riding. Right? He's going to run in an Ottawa riding or somewhere else closer to the center if he's going to run for prime minister. This is strictly, as Mark said, a one and off. What does that say to people? Yeah. You know, I'm going to represent you for as short a brief time as I possibly can because I want to be prime minister. And at that point, if he wants to run the country, he clearly can't be in favor of Alberta separation or Quebec separation or anything like that. But is that what his core belief is, that Canada should just basically sell itself out? I truly cannot believe that. I don't believe it.
Yeah. I think Pierre is done. I don't know why they're prolonging this. And there's a reason why Carney right out of the gate was like, yeah, man, let's get this guy back in the house. Let's get him back in the house because we might as well just end it right now. Like, let's put this to rest. Because at the rate, and I know a lot of people were bitching and complaining about this backing down on the digital services tax. I saw a lot of people, it's like, oh my God, what a fucking overreaction. I'm sorry. I know I sound a bit like too much promoting Carney, but there are literally millions or hundreds of thousands of jobs at risk in this trade deal. We were going to go down. We were going to allow all those, the steel industry, the auto industry, all of that to be sacrificed for a digital services tax. Really? Come on.
Conservatives the Conservatives hated that digital services tax. They weren't supportive
of it.
The
UK backed down yesterday. The UK backed down on their tax.
Right. Like, why would we fight over that? Like, and everybody's criticizing Carney. Oh, so much for the elbows up. And I'm just
what the difference is Carney, like Alex Panetta out of Washington, who's just leaving CBC, he reported that the difference was under the Trudeau regime, they wouldn't concede anything till the negotiations were over at the very end.
Right.
This is Carney publicly saying, no, we're not going to hang up on that. We're not going to. We're not going to screw a deal over to that. We'll deal with that. We'll get that off the table.
They're also dealing with a different. Carney's dealing with
a whole different thing.
President, right? Trump now has immunity. He's an imperial president. He's a king. The Supreme Court just gave him the rest of the carte blanche he needed. And so any country negotiating with him, especially one with the largest, longest unprotected border in the history of the world, has to look at what makes sense and what doesn't. And so that digital services tax, the Conservatives wanted to scrap it if they'd had the opportunity anyhow. So, everyone getting all puffy. It's ridiculous.
Come on, that being said, these goddamn companies have to start paying taxes in
Yes.
each of the countries where they're making
Yeah.
fortunes,
Yes.
taking billions of dollars out of virtually every economy that can afford to have billions of dollars taken out of it and not paying any taxes. The
Yeah.
Americans might be all right with that and want to give them more tax breaks, but we're not. And there comes a point where the world will have to stand up and get
Yes.
some money of these digital bastards
Yes.
because they're literally hosing us. They're just taking everything and giving nothing back. I don't agree with governments paying to support journalists either, but when the jobs are being wiped out like this, I mean, something's being done. We do need some sort of digital services tax at some point, but I understand why governments are not going to bring it in now when Trump is in this kind of negotiating mode where he'll shut everything down over one
Over
issue.
something
So
like
I
that.
do think, though, that we need to get no subsidies for foreign-owned media in Canada.
absolutely.
We have to, and I'll have on, you guys have heard of Scanda, the new social site that's being set up and funded by Canadians in the tech sector to make it a safe place for Canadians to have Canadian conversation without American propaganda interests in it. I mean, that's my take on it, but I'm going to be interviewing the founder of Gander on the OShow in a couple of weeks, next week, actually. So, I mean, I want to learn more about it. So we have to protect our airwaves. And I think any kind of subsidies for any US media we have to recognize that this is an air war. And I just bring up Ukraine again because there's not a night I go to bed where I don't think of what's happening there and how Zelensky's on the front lines and how proud I am of Carney supporting Zelensky in every way that he has so far. And Mark, you're not being pro Carney, I don't think, to say that we've got a top negotiator who is making a concession because he understands that the game is bigger than that particular play, right? It's that whole thing of, you can lose a battle as long as you don't lose the war to win the war. And I think that he is trying to structure a deal that protects industries, that gives Trump enough sense of whatever Trump needs to feel to back off. And so, whether it's the auto sector jobs or whether it's our sovereignty, I think we've got a smart, hardworking person at the desk. And what's interesting is because he doesn't have a foil in the House, like he doesn't even have Poilievre to fight with, right? Because Scheer is nothing in terms of any kind of a foil. So the fact that he doesn't even have a foil, he put out, rather than get all defensive and I didn't cave and blah blah blah, instead of that, he put out a picture of him working at his desk saying, when you're in a crisis, you focus on what you can control. Right. And then he talked about what he can control. So I would rather I don't care if he was liberal or conservative or NDP. I wouldn't care if it was Wab Kinew as prime minister, if he could focus and get it done well. Like, it doesn't matter. I'm not partisan. What I care about is competency. And, what also is alliterative with, Carney caved is Carney's competent Carney. Just be competent. I don't care what stripe you are. I don't care. Be competent for this country, because I believe not only are there more of us who reject the MAGA ideology, I also, because it is an ideology, literally, I think it's more of us reject it. More of us are competent, caring people. Carney has a tremendous amount of soft power in the world if we don't have the hard power, which obviously he's investing in to build. But we have soft power and we have smart power. And out of the three powers, if you can't have hard power, you sure as hell want the other two. And so let's use that as much as we can. Any other thoughts, guys, on Canada, Alberta, Ontario, or the state of the world?
I would say that, I want to end, I know we're wrapping up, so I want to end hopefully, because you were always saying, Mark, we need to be hopeful. We can't just be, and so.
I mean, honestly, guys, I'm not better than anyone out there. Maybe if I was retired and didn't have any children or grandchildren on the way someday, maybe if I lived out somewhere and I could just like sit in my room and watch TV or something. But, as a parent, especially, my daughter says to me all the time, Mom, I hope that this blows over so we can have a post-war generation when I have kids. So that's where, I mean, we have to hope, right? Because there are people who are depending on us. We've fucked up the world enough between climate change and letting autocracy take a foothold after everything we learned in the Second World War. Our generation got greedy and lazy, and especially the one just before us. Sorry if there's a boomer on the panel, but my point is, like, we fucked it up. So whether it's hope or guilt or resolve, I don't care what motivates us, but it has to be motivating. So, you don't have to be Pollyannic for me, Mark, but I do want to motivate our audience to know we've got to be in this fight, right?
Yeah. And I think, on Canada Day, we saw enormous amount of pride across the country. I've never seen so many flags out there. Just the red and white, everyone was feeling proud. And I think what's happening is that with Carney at the helm, and we have some competency at the federal level. I think people are watching. Like I refer to what's going on in the States, and it's unfortunate because it's so fucking cruel and awful. But it's like watching a reality television show, and we are watching it as Canadians. And I think across this country, I'm looking around and I'm like seeing the diversity, and I'm proud of the diversity, and I don't ever want to see cops arresting people in the street. And I think that we're learning from the States of what defines us, why we're different, why we are different, and why we're not cruel, mean people, and why we haven't been allowed our lives to be usurped by reality television, because it's all it is down there. It is literally a reality television show where, it's like Big Brother meets, The Apprentice, and it's just people being cruel to each other and getting off on it. And I think that my hope is that we're seeing, obviously we can't control what the US does to us in terms of militarily, but I think this is the moment where what I see of us forging alliances with Europe and other countries around the world, and Carney's reaching out across Saudi Arabia, all kinds of different countries, Egypt, we are building a new package of partnership. And I think that will make us better. We will come out of this much stronger, and we won't fall for what's happening down there.
And Mark, I'm gonna ask you yes or no question, and then I'm gonna throw it over to Keith for his.
Oh, here we go. What am I rating factor?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. What's your rating factor on threat versus hope? Give me that.
Oh God,
no.
I'm still 7 in fear. Yeah.
Okay. The question I was going to ask you actually is this a new Canada?
Yeah. 100%. This is we kind of forgot. We kind of let it go. We kind of it just became too normal and I think this is like redefining. I feel I've always been proud to be Canadian, but I think like everybody, sometimes we become complacent. And now I am like, I've never been, and my kid, like I listen to her talk about Canada now in ways that I didn't expect to come out of her mouth. She sees all this stuff on social media. She's so proud to be Canadian. She's like, I would never want to be American, ever. She's 15 years old. Like,
Yeah, our kids are more patriotic than certainly I ever was. Keith, is it a new Canada? What is your stress rating, and whatever else you want to click with, my friend? And sorry about
my stress
comment.
My stress rating maybe goes from a 5 up to a 6, because Trump is just getting just a little bit crazier and more autocratic with this passage of this bill. I'm still hopeful that what we will see in a Canada-U.S. deal, despite all Carney's reaching out to the world, and this has to be done, and it's great that it's being done, and the interprovincial trade barriers, all of this needs doing. But all of that's kind of the easier part. Getting this deal with the United States that somehow gets the subsidies of steel and aluminum down from 50% to hopefully something like 10% or something, all that. I'm hopeful that can be done, that there will be an actual real deal, not just terms dictated by the dictator. I'm also hopeful in the longer term. It's not that long a term because it happens so quickly. The midterms next year. Yeah. I'm hopeful that Americans will wake up, that the time to have all the different aspects of the so-called big, beautiful bill drift down to the public consciousness, to have examinations by journalists, long thought pieces, and people begin to realize, oh shit, this is really hurting me, or hurting the poorest of the poor, or screwing over, 80% of a population in one particular state or another. These kinds of things, I'm hopeful that will come, and the midterms will see the Republicans get punished for what they're doing. It's just insane. And just one little point, you mentioned a name in there, Lorna, it tweaked to me, because I've been so impressed by this man since he's become Premier of Manitoba. I think Wab Kinew could be Canada's first NDP Prime Minister at some point in the future. Not right now, but from what I've seen of this guy so far, I'm really, really impressed. And I loved it when Trump did his latest, deals off with Canada, everything's coming, blah, blah, blah. He just posted, good thing we didn't put the American booze back in the shelves, huh? Like, that's it. That's all that needed to be said.
So maybe that's the hope, is that there are leaders who are stepping up. Guys, I don't know if you see all the comments that come in on the OShow. You can see the ones on YouTube, but you wouldn't be able to see my feeds unless you're looking, I guess. The comment I get a lot from viewers is that they look forward to every Friday because we make them feel better. Because even though we're doing issue identification and it's painful, and we've cried and we've yelled and we've sworn on this panel and with other OShow guests, even though we're doing the hard conversations, the fact that we then identify leaders like Wab Kinew and strategies like Carney's doing that are working, and the patriotism rising, and the next generation of Canadians seeing that there's something worth protecting, and the delineation of who we are, how we define ourselves, is not because of the United States. It's because we look around and now appreciate Canada. And
Yes.
we feel lucky as fuck to be Canadians. And that gives our viewers and our listeners to this podcast hope, because there are people like Bonnie Critchley rising up. People like Bruce Fanjoy saying, I don't have to accept this level of representation, right? We are seeing Canadians do No King's protests in solidarity with America. I'm feeling more hopeful for the new Canada than I've ever felt for the old Canada, with the caveat, of course, that we still are in a reality show with the US. It's not something we can sit and watch passively. It's real and we have to get active. But in terms of Canada, I've never felt more hopeful for our nation if we can mitigate that threat.
That commercial that's on right now with Kiefer Sutherland voicing it over about all the things in Canada and the music by the Bahamas underneath it. That's exactly it. That just sums it all up. It's here's what we are proud of. We're quietly proud of this, that, and because we are. We don't need to screech it out from the street corners. But you're seeing and again, Canada Day felt a little bit different this year, didn't it? It just had that extra little oomph, and we all know why. So I think that's, again, just another positive takeaway from all of this.
I can't remember the last time I posted a picture of my flag and it went viral. So, yes.
Except your sad story that your husband was away.
Yeah, that one too.
My mom,
I know. It was my first time. I mean, I had a little tear.
I know,
Time in 28 years that I didn't spend Canada Day with my husband because it was such a big deal in Ottawa. He had to go cover it. So I put on the hip, you know what I mean? Shared the drink. But I mean, so we are in a different place. We can be hopeful. You know, we're all going through our own stress in our private lives. Life goes on. But as a nation, the conversation matters. So please subscribe, comment on the OShow, everybody who's listening. Share this podcast with your friends and family. We're on Spotify for the audio as well. It's about a community conversation around pro-democracy and protecting all those wonderful things that we love about Canada. Two of those things that I love about Canada are, well, you're not things, you're people, but you are panelists, Keith and Mark. You guys are amazing. I wasn't sure how I could be cheered up this morning. I was not in a great place, as you guys know, watching me get ready for the show. But you know what? Listening to two smart, compassionate, intelligent Canadians talk about our new Canada and the opportunities makes my week better as well. Thank you so much. I know you guys are going to be back soon. We got lots of Scandal Panel Fridays coming up this summer. Everybody have a wonderful weekend and week. Be proud of Canada, fight for Canada, and enjoy the summer. Take care, guys.
Thank you.
When you care about current affairs, it's on the OShow. And when you want to get clear what's going on here, it's on the OShow. If you like to stay in the know, tune yourself into the OShow. It's the OShow. Lord Babcock's the OShow. And with a lot of great guests, she puts them to the test on the OShow. Yeah, there's no doubt they'll be calling them out on the OShow. You gotta stand for something or fall for it all. Canada, you hear the call of the OShow. It's a podcast, the OShow. Laura Babcock's the OShow. Stay informed with the OShow, OShow.
Your merch bid.